Hey everyone, this is Daniel, and today's video is a continuation of my planning SharePoint list relationships for Power Apps. Now this video pretty much brings us full circle back to the beginning, because the other videos was how to use the SharePoint list and the planning list was just as drop downs. But in this one, I'm going to focus on how I built these planning lists and then how to go ahead and add and edit items using these planning lists. So stick around, but first, here's my intro video. So to give you a quick recap on what these SharePoint lists were, here's a quick presentation I have. The ones you see on the left, those are the view lists and libraries that I have. Those are the ones we're going to focus on today. And just to give you an overview of how the relationships work, this is again something that I've shown in my previous video. And I always walk through the beginning of each video showing these relationships. And the one that you can see on the bottom, which are those the purplish color ones and also the light blue ones, those are the ones that we'll be focusing on this video, which is primarily those primary lists over there. All right, so now that you've got a recap, let's go back and now start working on these. So here's that SharePoint list. And again, the SharePoint list, there's the Power Apps. And in the Power Apps, you've seen me in those other 3 videos, how I went and built it. I mean, it's kind of a full supersized model and all of these things are happening. But here's the one I'm focusing on. Like, where are these accessories coming from? Where are these items coming from? Always same thing over here. Like, where are these coming from? Because what I've been doing is, in the other videos, I showed you once you've selected everything, you go ahead and make your decision, you submit the data, and it gets saved. And I've shown you that. But now it's the creation of these ones that I'm going to talk about. So for that, I want to call out a few things. One of them is this work is going to be done in the kind of admin section over here. So this is something that should be only done by a few people who have access to it, because they are the ones who are going to be going ahead and changing or adding or editing the the backend, these important lists which users are going to see as drop downs or selection items over there. So I would give this as a app admin level privilege, so that they actually have access to this button over there. If they're not in that admin group or if they're not in that admin role, then they should not be able to see that. And by the way, I have shown how to do that. I put the link down in the description over here, how you can use Microsoft 365 groups to view if somebody's in that group, only then they should be able to view that. I've even shown you that. So here is, I just want to call that out first, okay? So these are the ones that we're going to focus on. I'm going to go ahead and now focus on how we go ahead and add items to these accessories, and then we're going to go ahead and show you how these relationships and everything are built over here. So again, this section of the setting is pretty simple and straightforward. It's just a very simple page. You came straight from the main screen, and this is a very simple gallery that I have. And in the gallery, basically on the on select of this video, on select of the screen, on visible of the screen, I've gone ahead and done built this little collection. All right, so this collection over here, this data is not coming from anywhere. I just went ahead and created that over there. All right, now I'm also going to talk a little bit about this form status view in just a second. So let me, I'll just hold up on that if you're interested in that. So this was a pretty simple collection. Came back over here to the gallery. And this gallery's basically got the items of that same collection over there, okay? Went ahead and just sort by menu and made it kind of nice and clean over here. So what I want to do is now start working on these based on the simple and kind of go to the advanced ones. So let's tackle the very simple ones, which is let's do the shipping class one. So I come over here, I click on the shipping class one, and it takes me to this screen. And this is very simple. This is, again, another simple list. So let's go and take a look at that list. It's a very SharePoint site that I have. I go to the SharePoint, I'm going to the site contents area. I come to the scrolling, and I'm trying to look for the shipping. Yep, right there, it's shipping class. Click on the shipping class. Very simple list, all right? It's just basically the ID and the title. In fact, the out-of-the-box list is what I'm using over here. So that's the easy part. And then when I come over here, I've again used a very simple gallery. And in the gallery, I've gone ahead and done the shipping class, which is basically that same list I showed you. It's a connection. And then you know all the jazz about this one, right? When you go ahead and select the template, it's the template fill collection where I go ahead and do the template fill. And if this one is selected, that's when I go ahead and highlight it to the light blue, okay? So that's the easy part. And then this is, again, very easy part. It's the edit column over here. So when I come back now, let's go and search for our shipping class. Yep, right there. It's in that edit form. In the edit form, all I've done is gone ahead and shown the one field, which is the title. And then I've gone ahead and based on what I've selected, it goes ahead and gets saved. And again, it also shows me, the item shows me again what I've been selected. So if you go to the item level, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It basically shows me the way to view it and edit it. Actually, this is a good time for me to go and talk about this from status var or variable that I use. So this is the variable that I use to control the status of the form. By status, I mean is, am I just viewing it? Am I going to add something, or am I going to edit something? And I like the way I use these variables, because then I can go ahead and use a single form, which is the edit form, to do all that jazz in it. I personally stay clear of the view form, and I stick with the edit form. Now, I've got nothing ill about the view form, but what I don't like is that the view form doesn't have the flexibility to go ahead and change it to an edit form. Well, the edit form does. The edit form, even though as it primarily is to edit the data, I can go ahead and change the visible. I can go ahead and change the status to only view. And then in that case, it behaves just like the view form. Therefore, regardless of what the form need is, I always stick with the edit form. So that's what I've done over here. Now, based on the screen that we came to, for every screens on visible, I've gone ahead and added this form status var instead of to view. That's just something that I've done just to be sure that if whatever did a change on that variable somewhere else, if I come to this screen, it needs to be in the status view over there. And I've pretty much done that for each and every screen. All right. So now, based on what I'm selecting, I go ahead and update the status of that variable. For example, in this gallery over here, when I select any of these icons over here, it's only for view purposes. So when I click on them, I come over here and say, yep, that's for view purposes. So I'm going to go and set that value of that variable to view. In this one, it's a pencil. So guess what I'm going to do? That's going to be for edit. So when I do an on select, that's going to become edit. And then this one, when I click on it, it's on select becomes new. So kind of understanding, it's pretty intuitive that, again, for viewing purposes, I set the value as view. For editing, I set it as edit, and I set that as plus over here. So it's kind of very intuitive, and I've kind of set that for my reason over here. Now, therefore, based on what is happening, I go ahead and set that item. So I've done two things. I'm doing it at the item level, and I'm doing it at the form level. So the item level will always be view. Will always show you whatever has been selected if it is view and edit. So let's think about that. As if I'm viewing it, so I'm coming over here, and I'm going to select it. It turned into view, which means I want to still view what I've selected. Same thing over here. If I'm editing it, I want to continue to edit and view what I've selected. Therefore, I've actually gone ahead and done this little segment over here. In the forms item, I've gone ahead and done this way. So I set the value to view, and if it is view, then show me what is selected. If it is edit, show me what is selected. And I've made this formula over here very simple, just so that I can explain to you in the video why that if statement does what it does over here. Okay. And then in the form, as we could proceed forward, you'll actually see me do some other things, but this is a very simple one to start with. And again, very simple. So now that you understand how the variables work, again, if I go and click on first class, the value is gone ahead and set to only the view. And in the view, I should be able to, because the value is set to view over here, that edit form is only going to show me what is selected over here. Same thing when I click on edit, the value of the variable goes ahead and sets to edit. And because it's edit, it'll still show me what is selected over here. But when I click on the plus, in the plus, it is now going ahead and changing the value of the variable to add, but this one becomes blank. So check this out. See, again, if I click over here, went ahead and showed me selected. Over here, went ahead and showed me selected. Click on that one, shows me a blank one. But did you notice something else that happened? Check this out. I'm going to show it to you, see if you can catch that. Oh, that's good. And oh, something happened. Let me go back over here. Something happened. Did you catch it? Yeah, you did. So it's actually that save button over here, the save icon. So what I've done is just to make it as a little bit user friendly and to make sure that the users only do what I allow them to do at that point is the save option. So in the save option, again, see it's visible. When I go back to the visible, I'm dictating the status of that visible based on that variable value. So right here, again, if the form status is for new or if it is for edit, only then I want you to make that button visible over there, the save icon visible over there. So again, that use of that form variable is used in so many different places. And this has just been my standard procedure when I build these apps is I always have that one variable, go ahead and assign different values for it. And then I use that across the different app in the edit forms, or I can use it in the patch statements. Basically, any controls that I want people to see it based on whether it is a new entry, edit, or view, I control it using this variable. It's a little tidbit for y'all. Okay, so when I come in over here now, now you see how that visible came up. So now, since I'm focusing on this save button, let me go and actually do its on select. So its on select is again pretty straightforward. Once I have gone and saved it, it goes ahead and submits this form. This is the form. See, it's shipping class form. See, that's the same thing. Click on it, and it submit the form, and then I set the form status var back to viewing. What that means is that when I go ahead and now save it, it'll go ahead and change that back to the viewing purpose. So for example, when I come over here now, selected it there, but if I go ahead and now add something, it'll go ahead and add it, and then it'll change the form back to, do that. So I'll do super fast, and I go ahead and save it. Saves it, comes over here, and then went ahead and changed that back to the view mode. See? So that's basically how that worked over there. All right, so this was an easy one to start with. Now let's go and work on the locations. So I can come back over here now. Let's just come back there, go to location. And the location is, again, very simple, very straightforward, but there's one little change that happens over there. So the location is exactly the same one. So in the location, again, based on what I'm selected, it shows up over here. Value of the variable goes ahead and changes. This will be for view, this will be for edit, this will be for add. For edit and add, the save button shows up, and again, the exact same thing. So shipping class is done, location is done. Let's talk about office locations. Now in office locations, something is a little different. So let me actually show you what that is. So check this out. Let's go back to the app over there, and you'll kind of understand why that office location was a little different. So if you go back to the home screen and look at the app, we made the selection what we want. Great, I've selected it. Go back over here, and now I need to select the office location. So if I went ahead and showed up as, say, if it's an apartment or a home, then it shows up with this address to put in. But if it is office, then this shows up. So this is actually the third entry that I've selected, item number 3. Keep that in mind, all right? So what we've done is now I need to add more office locations. And that is what that little entry is for over here. So kind of understand what's going on? Cool. So let's go back over here. Let's go into our edit screen, go to office location. And now let me show you how this magic happens. So simple office locations, again, another list over here. So let's go and take a look at the office locations is right there. Office location is, again, it's got the place to put the data, and it's also got this other information. Now, I have shown you primarily, I've basically shown you all of this information, but let me talk about that relationship. So location, this is the primary SharePoint list ID. Simple, not a problem. Location ID was ID number 3. And this is what I was talking about, is that location which we selected in the app. It was the third entry. And therefore, I want to make sure that I always have, when I'm adding a entry for office location, I need to have that number 3 already set up over there. Because that's how that relationship builds over there. If you kind of remember this one on the office location, that relationship is built over here in the office location. See, that office locations ID matches with the location list over here. That this location ID is going to be for the office ID number 3, and I want to maintain that relationship over here. So I come back now, and I need to make sure that when I'm adding a office location, that office location should have location ID 3. And this is in my scenario. Yours could also have other entries. So other than this, the variables which you talked about, that simple powerful variable form status var, that's all the simple thing that continues over here. Click over here, variable value turns view, variable value turns edit, variable turns add. But I want to talk about now that location ID, how that is going to be added. So over here, when I click on plus, something has happened. And if you notice, it's not this thing. We've already talked about that. It's the location ID. Every time I add an entry over here, the location ID by default has to be 3. So let me show you how that's working. Now the form part, let's actually look at the overall form. The form is pretty simple. Data locations is office location, and then the default mode, I've gone ahead and shown you this one is the status of the mode based on what is the entry, the variable value. That's simple. But it's this one over here, location ID. Its value also is dependent on the form status var, and I've assigned some values to that. So I'm actually going to spend a little bit on time on this. On when you add any of these forms, by default, if you go to the advanced property of the form, they are locked. But for this one, I have to unlock it because I need to go ahead and add some values to its default value. So I basically come in over here to select on the location ID, data card, go to the advanced, and I unlock it. Now that it's unlocked, I don't see that option over there. Now, next thing I want to do is on the location ID card, you select the entire card and then you go to its default value and you add this little formula over here. Again, the formula is that based on whatever is the form status variable value, make it to 3. So in this case, whether it's view, it's edit, or new, assign the value 3. And the reason again for that is because they're all office locations whose primary ID matches to ID number 3 over there for locations. So that is the big one over here, okay? Now, when I go ahead and now save it, the save button is pretty simple. It goes ahead and does a submit to the data, changes the form status back to view, and we are golden. So this was the little extra change that I want to talk about. Is kind of building up how I've gone ahead and worked on it. So in the other two which I talked about, which was the the shipping class and the location, I didn't have to go ahead and unlock any properties, but on the office location, I've gone ahead and unlocked a property over there. All right, so we've talked about the two easy ones. Let's now build it a step further and talk about the manufacturers. And you'll see me in my email list called MFR or manufacturer. So I come back over here and I go to manufacturer. Now in the manufacturers, I'm basically adding the list of all the manufacturers. And over here, it is going to be the title and the 3 logos which we have over here. The logos, primary ones you're seeing over here are the logos, but I've got images of each of the logo itself, which are these ones, the headquarters and what the store looks like. So I want to pause over here and talk a little bit about this. For the sake of this video, I've gone ahead and made it very simple and just put direct links over here. I have another video coming up. In fact, the next video coming up is I'm going to show you how to automate this, where you have an option to go ahead and click on that new item over here. There'll be an option to go ahead and upload an image, and that image will automatically be stored with its link. I'm going to show that from a list standpoint. So I don't want to kind of steal that thunder for that video. It is coming out, and I'll show you an automated way to do it. But for the sake of this video, I made it very simple, where you basically go ahead and just add that link. So we go back and come back in. So the way I'm getting these images is consider where I'm coming into a, you've got your SharePoint list over here. You've got an image library. You go ahead and upload an image. And then you click on that image, which is on the SharePoint library. Then you click on this view original and you get that link. All right. So that's the link that you go ahead and capture. I've done a Control C. And then when you're going ahead over here to add an item, you go ahead and put all this other information in. So basically this is how this works. Now again, just to recap, just to tell you that I'm going to show an easier way to do this in the next video, but I don't want to take too much time on this one over here. So we went ahead and now covered the manufacturer piece. Now let's go and talk about devices. So kind of again building it up. Showed the easy ones. Now talked about the manufacturer one, which has those links. Now let's talk about devices, because devices, it's a little bit of work involved. Now, again, as a quick recap on devices, I have to go ahead and build this relationship. So in the devices, it's not really the primary ones. It is still in the primary category, though. I'm a secondary category, because yes, it is using these, referencing these other links, and the primary is referencing that. And the other links are referenced over here. But it is still a place where people go ahead and connect or select it. So it's still classified as a primary over here. So I do need to talk about that. Now, one of the things is in order to get a device that I'm doing, I need to know who the manufacturer is, or its OEM ID. So that's why I've gone ahead and added this top gallery over there, which is the top horizontal gallery. And then based on what I've selected over there, I've got these other items, and that's why I selected. It goes ahead and shows all these other things. Focus on the IDs, because that's how I'm building this relationship. So for example, in this image, this item that I've selected over there, its ID number is 17. So that's why you see device ID is 17, because that's a device. Its manufacturer ID is 2, which is coming from there. So you see kind of how the relationships are built. And then I've also gone ahead and added the image area over here. So let's do an example. I'll come back to this Acer one over there, and I'm going to, now add, by the way, same thing on as far as the use of the formula over here. Same, process going on. When I go ahead and select the item, on select the form status bar becomes view. Same thing over here. If I go ahead and edit that, becomes edit, and go ahead and add a new one over there. So let's actually, pretend that we're going to add a new one. So when I come over here, keep an eye on the form, all right? So I click on that, and two things have happened. the form basically changed. So that's one thing. But it has also gone ahead and remembered a few things. And if you already captured what that is it's basically remembering the manufacturer ID, because I've gone ahead and done that. And it already went ahead and pre-populated the device ID based on the ones that I've selected for the device over there. So two things have happened. Two things I want you to know about. One is the manufacturer ID. It already went ahead and selected the one that I have over here. And then based on the device, it's gone ahead and put the device ID. So manufacturer ID it got from there. Gone ahead and selected the device ID. This is something it will automatically populate. The third thing is the manufacturer name. It went and populated that as well. Now, technically, I don't need the manufacturer name because I've already got the relationship built over there. But in this case, I've just gone and added it as well. Just something that you can, it's up to your, the choice is up to you. Whether if you want to, make it your reporting a little bit more easier and don't want to do a lot of relationships, then you can take that out. But in essence, I just want to call out that since we already have the manufacturer ID, I've already got a good relationship built up with the manufacturer's name. So I really don't need that over there. Now over here, I have gone ahead and added a drop down because I want to go and select whichever the drop down is going to be. So that's why I went ahead and did that magic. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do a super duper computer, right? I'll leave everything else the same. This is going to be an ultra book. It's going to be 1099. Processor, we'll do 4.5. We'll do like 256 gig. We'll do it, 2 terabytes. Screen, let's make it a 17-inch screen. I don't have any images right now, so I'll just leave the images as is, and I'll go ahead and save that. It's going ahead and saving it, and I come back over here to the super duper computer. Didn't have any images, and it went ahead and saved everything. It even remembers to go ahead and keep that drop down that I selected. So now that you've seen this fancy thing that happened over there, let's go and take a look at this edit form. Okay, so this is basically that edit form. It's a very simple form. Came over here, go to the edit fields, and these are the fields that I've dropped over there. Now, as you know, that there's some filtering that is going on, so let's actually go and take a look at that. Anyway, where I've done pre-population, I've had to go ahead and unlock its data card. So same thing happened over here. For the device ID, I went ahead and come to the advanced, I unlocked it, and I've done two things. First of all, in its default, I've gone ahead and added this variable, this formula. So again, I've used the form status var, but I'm doing this little magic over here. So let's take a look at that. So for the sake of view and edit, I want it to select whatever was this item's ID value. So what do I mean by this item's ID value? It is the selection of this gallery, and this item selection is where it comes from over here for the default values of that card. That is why it is this item selected. But if it is new, then I don't want it to come from here. I want it to come from this device gallery, right? And then whatever was its last ID, add one to it. And it's very important that we, kind of understand this, because I'm doing two important things. I am not using the SharePoint's list ID automatically over here. Let me kind of show that to you. So where I'm saving all this devices information, if I go over here to the devices, and I actually already have a filtered version, let me go ahead and clear all and apply. So you can see that this is my devices SharePoint list, and I've got a device ID column. I've got a manufacturer ID column to build that relationships over here. That's where you see the device IDs are pretty much, static, one for each device. It has its own unique ID, but manufacturers are the same. ID is the same for the manufacturer name. So I have been actually creating my own device ID. I'm not referencing the ID of the SharePoint list. And people may be asking, Daniel, why are you doing that? And what I'm doing is basically starting to break the habit of using the SharePoint list ID over there. What's been happening is I've been told by people that, hey, we are coming to a point where we do some migrations across different sites and everything, and those IDs break. So I thought this is a good time to stop depending on the SharePoint list ID. And here's a good example for me to demonstrate that to you. So going to that ID over here is in the device ID. When I'm adding a new item, just take the last one from the gallery and then go ahead and add it with +1. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Say, whoa, Daniel, stop over here. That gallery is not completely populated. You could, what if the IDs, has more than 500? If you bumped it up to 2,000, then you're not going to get the correct number. It says, yes, I get it. You are absolutely correct. That can happen. But think about it, all right? I have done filtering. I'm not going and showing all the devices for the entire assets that you have. I'm filtering it already based on the manufacturer. So what, in fact, for my sake of this demo, which I can actually go production with this one over here. I know that the number of devices I have will not go over 500. So that's why I'm very confident to put this as the last one, because I know I'll get the last one. Now, in your case, you may come into a scenario where you are easily going to go over 2,000, over 500. Well, bump it up to 2,000. You can go to the advanced settings and bump it up to 2,000. If that is still not going to work, then add another secondary step to do some more filtering to keep that gallery inside the 2,000 limit. Again, if that doesn't happen, then again, this is SharePoint list, so it's delegable. Instead of selections over here, put in a search function, goes ahead and gets the last one, and then play around with it. But what I want to prove the point to you is that this actually works. I have success. I can confidently use that +1 option, and therefore, when I go ahead and now add a new item, it will go ahead and take whatever is the last one, and it'll put a +1 to that. Okay, so it's very confident, and it's taking care of the non-dependency on the SharePoint list. Now, the Acer one, okay, here its default value I'm going ahead and getting is this over here. Is that if you're looking at it or if you're editing it, go ahead and get the manufacturer name that you select over here in this gallery. But if you select this, the form status equals new, then get me these the manufacturer selected name, which is this manufacturer selected name. Get it from that gallery. Okay. So again, that is pretty simple over here. Same concept for the manufacturer ID. If you're only viewing it or if you're editing it, get me the default ones from that selected one. But if not, then go ahead and get me from the top gallery. What I do want to spend a little bit of time on is this data card over here. So what I've done is, again, for this data card, which is the device data card, I have gone ahead and unlocked it. That's where you can see it's already unlocked. But in it, I went ahead and added another control, which is the Dropdown Control. And the way to do it is click on something inside it, then you go ahead and drop the control, whichever is the control that you want to drop. So I went ahead and added the drop down. And once I had something selected, I went ahead and got this drop down. And now in that drop down, its values are coming in. I went to the devices and I used the distinct function. Again, I'm confident for my data that distinct will work. But remember, distinct is not delegable. So kind of be cautious on that. I knew that the devices I'm getting is 500 or less. Therefore, it was working. If for you are not able to get all the distinct ones from that, go ahead and just hard code that in here or put it into another list or something. Just go ahead and plan that accordingly from your side. So that's why when I went and did this, I was able to go ahead and get those ones from the devices list. Just so that you want to know what it is, I come over here and I have a devices list, which is this one. And my devices list, I'm going to use a distinct function on this column over here. So when I go and click on devices, see how that it kind of basically shows you that distinct function. And that's what I did, is this is the one that I've gone ahead and pulled over here using the distinct function. Now, two other things I've done over here. First, on the, I'm only using that for that one-time entry to put the data in. I am not using it to view the purposes. Therefore, I've made some changes to its visible. And guess what the visible is dependent on? Which variable is it dependent on? Correct? You guessed it. It is dependent on that one single form status var or variable. So this is pretty simple. Like, show me the drop down only when I'm adding a new item. If I'm editing and viewing it, just go ahead and set it as false. But it's inside hidden one, right? Because actually I've gone ahead and made it invisible, but this is the one over here. If I make it visible, you'll actually see it. This is how I've been doing all my magic on the other forms as well. Is in its view, which is visible right there, I've gone ahead and done this functionality. That's the opposite of the drop down. That if I'm doing new, then go ahead and actually set it as false. But for edit and view, go ahead and show that. So let me show you what that magic means. Right now, I'm doing a add. I'm doing a plus. That's why it is only showing me this drop down. But if I were to go back and click on any one of these, to come back to my devices, select any one of them, it shows me that it shows me the data card, which is a single line of text. It doesn't show me. So what I selected over here, now it's what shows me the single line of text one. It doesn't show me the drop down one. So that magic once again is happening on the concept of this visible. And it's also happening based on the data that I'm submitting over there. Key thing is that when you add this functionality, when you're adding the device dropdown, you still got to make sure that this data card value its default values should have that data. So let me show you what I mean. When I come into my default, in my default, if I'm saving a new item, then make sure it is the selected item of the dropdown. So in each essence, this is the one that is dependent on saving the data. All right, the data saving, sure, the value is coming from the dropdown, but I need to go ahead and show the value of the dropdown over here. Then it goes ahead and saves the data. So it's very important that in this the single line of text that we have, the data card value over there, I put its default values clearly. So those are its default values. I've also gone ahead and added its visible values, because it's the combination of the two that makes the form very user friendly. So that was a good overview on the devices one. And now let's go and focus on the last one, which is the accessories. So now I come back over here and we take a look at the accessories. And the accessories, I kept that last because there's this one new gallery, because all the other ones we've only had 2 galleries to work with. We've got a new gallery over here. So the one on the top, you're familiar with it. It goes ahead and, it's taking the OEMs or the manufacturers. Over here is all the devices. But this is the one that it tells me that based on whichever selections I've done, these are the existing accessories we have for that. So you've kind of already caught the drift. Okay, Daniel, I saw what you did in the devices, that you already had something pre-selected. So when you're going to add a new form, I'm guessing a lot of these are going to be pre-populated. Am I correct? And you are. Check this out. When I click on that, for the Dell one, whose OEM is 3, for the Inspiron 17, whose ID is 29, see, it's already pre-populated. And I'm doing that again to make it easier to build those relationships, which is all that this focus is on the SharePoint side over here. So that's why I went ahead and pre-planned it, where I already had it populated for the ID number 3. I went ahead and added this one populated for ID number 29. And then again, these two, I technically would be fine without it, but I went ahead and added it just in case. Probably future reporting becomes a lot easier and things like that. And then same thing over here. I need to know what the device is. Technically, I could have skipped all these 3 over here, because I can get all these 3 informations just based on the OEM ID. So I'm helping, kind of you to plan over there a little bit more. But then what I need is to put my accessory, because that's the only one that I'm adding. So I can put in, secondary monitor. And if I just go ahead and save it, then that secondary monitor shows up over here. See, stays inside that nice filtering capability that I've added. So let's actually take a quick look at that filtering. From here, it's the manufacturers. It's very simple, very straightforward. This one is filtering based on the devices that are, the data is coming from the devices SharePoint list, but it's also filtering the IDs that are, it's also filtering the manufacturer it is. So here is all the devices. They're all the Asus kind. So I've gone and filtered its manufacturer name. So that's how the selection and the filtering is going on. In this case, the filtering is actually only dependent on this one, because I've already done the manufacturer filtering right there. So I don't need to do another and over there. I just focus on this one, and that's where its filtering happens. So that's why there's this 3-tier filtering. But when you're doing a filtering, always need to remember the one before it. You don't need to remember the one after it, or you don't need to remember the all the levels above it. Just remember the one before it, because that's the one that you're focused on. And that's basically the full way to work on that. What I'll do is let me show you the each of these data cards. So same thing over here. I had to go ahead and unlock it. And then in here, I went and did the same thing for the default values. If I'm viewing it and editing it, show me this selected item from this gallery, basically the last gallery. But if I'm going to go ahead and add a new one, then pre-select the manufacturer's ID name over there. See, this is the manufacturer's ID. It's coming from there. Over here, go ahead and, if it is just for view and edit, then show me the IDs over here. But if it is a new one, then get me its ID number from this gallery, right? Because now we're no longer talking about the manufacturer, we're talking about the device. Same thing over here for the manufacturer name. If I go ahead and, its default value, same thing. If I go ahead and do the manufacturer and the manufacturer, then if I'm doing the view and edit, show me the default ones over there from the item. But if it's not, then go ahead and get me the selected one. And for the manufacturer, you have a few choices. You could get it from either this one over here, or you could get it from that one. You've got a few choices to work with. The name, same concept again. I would have to go ahead and grab the default value based on whatever is the variable status. And for again, since it's just a name, it has to come from this selected item over here. So it is important that how the selections work. And then finally, in the save functionality, it's pretty simple that I go ahead and hit submit, and then I set the the variable value back to view over here. So we covered a lot going through these 7 some SharePoint lists and libraries over there, and I even showed you an example of how I can use the existing images just to get the URL. Stay tuned for that one, because I've gone ahead and I'm showing the next video how I can automate that for that. Save that for the next video. But this is a very good process, a rigorous process of how now these are the primary lists where data is usually just coming in as a view purpose in the original app. But I've walked you through now how the relationships are built in this primary list and library, and then how you go ahead and apply that in the edit forms when you're saving or adding a new item or editing a new item, how that works over there. So hopefully this was helpful. If you don't mind, go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, and definitely hit subscribe, because that always helps me promote to get more videos to you. And as always, keep power apping.